Welcome to season 2 of the incredible book, Exhausting the Inexhaustible Buganda Ghost. Hoodwinked, dumped, used, and redumped. A quest for Buganda's cause, for Buganda's independence. Ladies and gentlemen, with me here, I am privileged to host one of the bargaining scholar, Doctoris Mahiri Balunywa, who comes from the Center for Critical Thinking and Alternative Analysis. He rubs shoulders with the likes of Professor Afuna Abdullah and others he will tell us as we proceed. Last time I gave you an introduction of sorts. Today I want this bargaining scholar to give us a little genesis, if you like, a history of sorts of how did kingdoms begin before we get into the Buganda kingdom. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you, Isaac. I'm glad to be here.
You're
I'm
welcome.
humbled.
You're welcome. My brother, you have had several discussions in as far as kingdoms are said to have begun. What is your theory in as far as kingdoms are concerned?
You know, everything that you see has a beginning. There is no institution that is organic. All institutions, call it a state, call it a family, has a structural genesis. And I remember when I was writing my first year PhD and work on the political economy of Busoga, I came to realize that kingdoms emerges from the power wielders of that time. There is this guy, Professor Mukandala, outgoing Vice Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam. You know, when I was still an administrative assistant of the East African Leadership Summer School at the University of Dar es Salaam, Professor Mukandala told us that we have two types of kings. We have what we call the roaming bandits, and we have the stationary bandits. And he argues that kingdoms are establishments of powerful people, power wielders, those who wield power within a social structure, right? They set up a structure. That was the first government, if you liked, where those who were strong in society established kingdoms. And these people who were strong in society wanted to continue exploiting, the lead. When we talk about kingdoms, we're talking about the cycle between the led and the leaders. The kings are the leaders. The led are the masses, right? The Marxists would call them the powers. So what happens is that when a kingdom is established, it has its power wielder called the king. Now, according to Mukandala, we have two types of kings. We have stationary king. We have two types of kingdoms, if not kings. We have the roaming bandits, and we have the stationary bandits. Now, the kings are the stationary bandits. They don't work, you work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you work for them, they accumulate the wealth.
Mm-hmm.
What Marx and Engels refer to as the primitive accumulation of resources. Kings subject the led into working hard. When they work hard, the product of their efforts is owned by the king.
Mhm.
So the king becomes this stationary bandit who keeps on grabbing people's wealth and property to himself, then again redistribute it according to his wish and will. And that's how power is accumulated. You know, the concept power rotates around wealth.
Mhm.
But again, power and wealth are two asymmetrical arguments and concepts that needs to be understood in the context of what we call the political economy of a social structure.
Okay.
Then we have what we call the roaming bandits.
Mhm.
The roaming bandits are these people, they don't have property, but what they do is they wait for you to accumulate property, then they come once in a while and grab it. Those are the petty thieves. So as we talk about kings, I'm afraid, I know you come from the royal family of Busoga. I'm a Mukopi, I'm a plebeian. But that is not the point. The point is to appreciate the fact that, that kings are stationary bandits. They grab property and they use that property to control society.
Okay, Dr.
So they are not organic structures. They are man-made.
Excellent. So, Dr. You are in short telling us, because I quote you in this book when I begin talking about the magnificent Buganda and say, according to Marx Engels, you describe them as primitive accumulation of wealth. Today we call them kleptocrats. Mr. Mahiri, are you saying that Mukandala say that our kings are bandits?
That's what he exactly said. That's what he's exactly saying. And I don't want to be very far away from what he said because I was convinced by the narrative.
Okay. In scholarship, we accept all shades of thoughts. That is what Mukandala said. And I respect you for that ideology. Are you also saying, Doctoris, that biblical kings such as David and Solomon were bandits?
Oh yeah, that's something interesting. You know, every time you talk about issues to do with religion, you know, religion, the problem with religion, it roadblocks reasoning. Once you talk about the Bible, kings, is it Solomon, David, then you are blocking me from reasoning. But let me, for the first time, appear anarchists. But we have two types of kings again. We must appreciate that.
Yes.
But these kings, the earthly kings, were self-created, as I've told you. Then the divine kings, the King Solomon, the Davids, these were divine kings. They were appointed by God. And these kind of divine kings never ruled, but they managed society on the instructions of God.
Okay.
So I don't think those would fall in the category of stationary bandits. With due respect, would look at them, you know, and every time they made mistakes, God punished them. You remember when King David fell in love with Uriah's wife.
Yes.
And God was not happy. He sent Prophet Nathan, and Prophet Nathan had to exhaust him, to punish him. So the kings, the biblical kings, were answerable to God. And they used divine laws of God to manage society. The earthly kings were not answerable to anyone, but they were answerable to themselves.
Absolutely. So they were despots in a way.
You've said
so
it.
In short, perhaps that explains some of the revolutions that have taken place over a period of time in different entities of the world. Talk about France, the Napoleon Revolution, when they overturned the monarchy, and perhaps even Britain. Argumentatively, it is also argued that Britain and England, or Great England for that purpose, was about to undergo the same thing, and I think they had to strike a kind of undertaking, especially after the American, independence, the Declaration of Independence,
1776.
Absolutely. So I see where you're coming from, but give me some kind of insight, Dr. Balunywa, in terms of perhaps where you're best known for, in terms of the Basoga people. I want to make a comparative analysis in terms of the Basoga. How does, for example, the kingdom of Busoga begin, for purposes of comparison with Buganda?
One, we must appreciate that Busoga, as in the word Busoga, never existed. Busoga is a forged, crafted kingdom. Even the so-called royal families there, the 11 royal families, are also forged, crafted. Because all these emerge from Bunyoro. They all claim, and rightly so, proudly they say, that they all came from Bunyoro. So how can the Munyoro become a Musoga and therefore become a king of Musoga? You get the point? Now, for the purpose of course, there are also very many asymmetrical internal and external contradictions within the formation of Buganda kingdom.
Yes.
You know, at one time, one school of thought says that they come from, that the first Buganda was Kintu, who lived on Mount Elgon. But we know very well that Mount Elgon is not part of Buganda. It's part of Bugisu.
Absolutely.
So one wonders how these people moved and established a king. You know, Buganda was a very small kingdom.
True.
Very small.
True.
Formed of 2 counties.
True.
You know, these people, the Nubians, under Sadim Bey, are those whom the Kabaka Mutesa used to expand Buganda by fighting off Bunyoro. That's why you find that a very good number of Buganda are actually Bunyoro. And it is the same, a very good number of Basoga are from Bunyoro. The 11 royal families of Busoga come from Bunyoro. So that's why I'm saying that these things called kingdoms are crafted. Busoga, the true owners of Busoga, and they were copied the plebeians.
Tell me, so are you trying to say that Busoga existed before the invention of the Banyoros, the like of the 11 royal tribes that you're talking about?
First and foremost, Busoga existed as a decentralized establishment. There was nothing called kings. You know, people just lived in their small enclaves. There was nothing called kings. If anything, there were heads of families. They were chiefs, right?
Yes.
And there were clans, if you like. So this key concept, you know, the first chairman of Busoga Kingdom was Semeka Kungulu.
Yes.
You know, I hear Baganda saying that Semeka Kungulu was a Buganda. He was a Munyoro. He was an elephant hunter. When the king of Buganda wanted ivory, he asked his subjects. Then they told him there is somebody called Kakungulu, a Munyoro, who's very good at elephant hunting. That's when Kakungulu was picked from Bunyoro before that part was annexed to Buganda, and that's how Kakungulu became a Buganda. So that's why I'm saying that some of these issues, you know, I'm a Republican. I don't believe in kingdoms. I believe in republics because we must transcend and graduate beyond small petty issues called kingdoms.
Okay. So, in short, you are saying that all this ideology of people belonging to a tribe or perhaps to a clan or perhaps to a kingdom is simply a fallacy that was built up by these bandits, like you said, and who have taken advantage of others to enslave them and make them puppets forever?
I should say it's not only a fallacy, but it's a hoax. You know, it's a craft. Primitive accumulation of resources. The strong taking advantage of the weak, exploiting them. You know, that's what exactly happens.
Okay.
So I just want you to look at like, I will just give you an example. If you read the works of Tassis Kabojere and Mahmoud Mamdani about state formation, how did Uganda become Uganda? So I will take you back. How did the Buganda kingdom become Buganda kingdom? How did the Busoga kingdom become Busoga kingdom? People who had been defeated from Bunyoro, they begin moving, they find a place which has no centralized system, and they establish themselves, and they set up something called the Busoga. You know, Busoga is a concept that emerges from a local weed called Kisoga Soga. You know?
Yes.
That is where the creation of the name comes from. You know?
Interesting discussion. So perhaps because today's emphasis is in respect to Buganda the Magnificent, I'm very sure in one of these seasons we shall definitely come and you give us some more insights into the kingdom of Busoga. But for purposes of emphasis, do you have credible scholarism to back up your arguments?
Oh yeah, when you look at the works of there are very many scholars that have talked about Buganda. I've even published a paper, a small paper, which describes the pre-Buganda, colonial Buganda, and post-colonial Uganda. And you know, it at times surprises me every time I read about the Buganda Agreement of 1900. It makes me understand that there was Buganda before the colonial state. and there was Buganda after the colonial state,
Mm-hmm.
and there was Buganda during the colonial state.
Yes.
So we must understand, for us to be in position to understand Buganda,
Yes.
we must look at Buganda from the pre-colonial,
Yes.
colonial,
Yes.
into
The present
post-coloniality.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So these are different facets
Mm-hmm.
of Buganda.
Absolutely.
You know, before pre-colonial Buganda was a very small establishment,
Absolutely.
kingdom, formed of 2 counties, right? Then because of the people who were there, who were very ambitious, you know, they began fighting off. They fought off Busoga, took part of Busoga. They fought off Bunyoro, took part of Bunyoro. Actually, when you look into the works of Nayenga, you know, he talks about and you'll find that that's why, by the way, that's why you find that there are very many names from the Bantu establishment. I'm talking about the Basoga and the Baganda having a common word.
Absolutely.
You know, you find very many people calling themselves names which are symmetrical to those of Buganda.
Absolutely.
Why? Because the first colonial state, the first colonialists of Busoga were Baganda. They came, conquered Buganda, conquered Busoga, but later on withdrew. The second colonial state was the Banyoro. They came, conquered Busoga, remained there, established their kingdom, imposed themselves on the Busoga, and they remained there. And not the kings. The third colonial state was the British. They came, conquered Busoga, established their own kingdom, put up Sameka Kungulu as the chairman of the World Kingdom and the Busoga Lukiko, but after some time they withdrew. So Busoga is a victim which has gone through 3 colonial episodes.
Absolutely. And when you talk about Busoga as a victim of colonial episodes, that is the argument that I think we are going to make further in our next discussion in terms of Buganda being a victim of some of these colonial tendencies, if you like. Because we also see Buganda as a centralized state, like the Zulu. And when the white man comes by way of, trying to preach, if you like, and the Islamization vis-a-vis Christianization of these entities, they come in the semblance of trying to give aid, but in doing so, they're actually trying to sabotage or trying to cause a subterfuge, if you like, so that they can take over and colonize these entities. And those are some of the arguments we propound in terms of the ideologies that are propounded, in terms of the laws that they make, in terms of the agreements that are written in black ink, if you like. The question that we pose to you, our viewers today, is whether or not these agreements hold any water in them, whether or not they are valid, whether or not they are void, ab initio, or whether or not they are voidable. We will draw more attention to that in our next discussion. Today, I was privileged to host my brother and friend, Mahiri Doctoris, in terms of trying to give us a little bit of how kings are born or how kingdoms were made. And we just had these are simply 2 types of bandits. One that usurps and remains, the other that keeps moving and usurping and generates people to follow them, and they become subjects of sorts. The question is, does your king, or is your king one that my brother has just described? Thank you for your attention, and God bless you for now.